I almost opened the box. I had my hand on the tape when Jessica whispered, "Will, don't. Look closer." I did, and what I saw made me step back from my own kitchen table like it had just caught fire. That was 10 minutes before the police arrived. 10 minutes before I realized my own daughter had sent me a message. Not a gift, not a card, a warning. But let me start from the beginning, because without the silence that came before, you might not understand the weight of that morning. Father's Day had always been simple for us. No big celebrations, no Instagram photos with brunch and balloons. Just Jessica, a pot of black coffee, and a quiet morning paper. We'd learned to love the calm, because our daughter, Samantha, brought anything but. This year was different. No card, no call, no text, not even one of those passive-aggressive emails she sends when she wants something but doesn't want to ask directly. Honestly, I expected silence. After what happened last month, the screaming, the accusations, the threats about never letting us see the grandkids again, I'd assumed she was cutting us off. For once, I welcomed it. I thought maybe the storm had passed. I thought maybe we'd finally drawn a line she wouldn't cross. I thought, wrong. The knock came at 8:46 a.m. One solid thud on the front door. Firm. Intentional. Not the light tap of a delivery driver or a neighbor with banana bread. This was something else. Jessica dried her hands and opened the door. A box sat there. Brown. Unmarked. No ribbons. No logo. Just one printed line. Happy Father's Day. William Carter. 1247 Maple Street. I picked it up. It was light. Too light. I shook it gently. Silence. No rattle. No shifting. No card. No name. Jessica narrowed her eyes. "Will, that's weird. Probably from work," I said, more to reassure myself than her. But she didn't answer. Just followed me as I carried it inside and set it on the table. The same table where we'd argued with Samantha 3 weeks earlier. The same table where I told her, no more. We stood over it for a moment. Just watching. Listening. Nothing. Until Jessica leaned in. Closer than I had. And froze. Her voice dropped into that low, instinctual tone I'd heard only a few times in our marriage, like the moment before a car crash or when Emma had that febrile seizure as a baby. "Will," she whispered, "don't open it. Look at the side." I bent down. At first, I didn't see anything, but then the light caught the surface just right. Tiny holes. Not random. Evenly spaced. Punched clean through. Breathing holes. My spine went cold. Jessica stepped back. "Something's alive in there." I stared at the box. My hands were still on the table, but I didn't feel grounded anymore. The room felt distant, wrong. The peaceful morning, gone. I didn't know yet what was inside that box, but I already knew who sent it. And deep down, I knew this wasn't a mistake. It was a message. From my daughter. I don't remember sitting down. One minute I was standing with Jessica near the box, my heart pounding in my chest, and the next, I was back in my chair, staring at the cardboard like it might blink. Jessica didn't sit. She stood a few feet away, arms crossed tightly, her gaze locked on the tiny holes along the side of the box. The air in the kitchen had shifted, heavier now. Still. Too still. "We need to call someone," she said quietly. I nodded, reached for my phone, then paused. What do we even say? That our daughter might have sent us what? A pet? A threat? Jessica's voice dropped. "Do you really think it was her?" I didn't answer right away, because saying it out loud would make it real, and I wasn't ready for that yet. It started with a rattle. Soft. Almost like paper shifting inside. Then silence. Jessica flinched. "Did you hear that?" I nodded slowly, rising to my feet again. The box hadn't moved, but something inside it had. I stepped closer, carefully, like I was approaching a wild animal. I leaned in just a bit, trying to hear. Then I heard it. A faint scraping. Deliberate. Rhythmic. Not random shifting. Movement. Jessica grabbed my arm. Her grip was firm, almost too tight. "Don't go near it. Please." I looked down at her hand, then back at the box. My mind was already connecting threads I didn't want to see. The silence after the inheritance fight. The sudden end to contact. The way Samantha had screamed, "You'll regret this, Dad. I promise you will." At the time, it sounded like raw emotion. An empty threat. But now it sounded like a plan. "Call the police," Jessica said. "Tell them we got a suspicious package. Something alive. No return address." I opened my phone and dialed. It took me longer than usual. My fingers trembled more than I'd expected. The dispatcher was calm. Collected. Is it making any noise, sir? She asked. I hesitated, then said the words I'd been avoiding. There's a sound, like hissing. The silence on the other end was brief, professional, but unmistakably tense. We're sending someone immediately. Please step away from the box. Keep a safe distance. Do not attempt to open it. As if I needed reminding, Jessica and I moved to the other side of the room. We sat on the edge of the couch, eyes fixed on the coffee table where the box now sat like a loaded weapon. Then the sound came again, clearer this time. A low hiss, like breath, like something coiled and waiting. Jessica's face turned pale. Will, what if it's dangerous? It is, I said quietly, even if it's not alive in the way we think. She looked at me, puzzled, but I couldn't say what I really meant, not yet. That even if it wasn't venom in that box, it was still poison. The police said they'd arrive within 10 minutes. But in a house that suddenly felt too quiet, too fragile, 10 minutes can feel like a lifetime. I kept glancing at the door, then at the box. And every time, my eyes were drawn back to the name on the shipping label. William Carter. Happy Father's Day. So specific, so impersonal, like someone wanted me to know it was for me, but not from them. Jessica leaned closer. Her voice was quiet. Do you think it's her? Really? I didn't answer, but my silence was louder than any yes. The police arrived 9 minutes after I hung up. I'd never realized how long 9 minutes could stretch until I spent them watching a box across the room. Jessica and I sat stiffly on the couch. The box hadn't moved again. No more hissing, no more scraping, just silence, which somehow felt worse. Then came a knock, not on the table this time, but on the front door. I stood too quickly. My joints protested. Jessica followed close behind. Through the frosted glass, I saw 2 uniformed officers. One tall and calm, the other already scribbling something on a pad. I opened the door. Mr. Carter? The taller one asked. Yes. Thank you for coming. I'm Officer Reeves. This is Officer Daniels. Dispatch said you received a package? It's in the living room, I said, stepping aside. They entered with the quiet confidence of people trained to handle the unpredictable. When Officer Reeves saw the box, his posture shifted. Not fear, but readiness. A kind of tension you can't fake. He leaned closer. Daniels crouched down, pointing. See that? The holes. Clean. Intentional. That's not damage. That's air. Jessica stood frozen beside me. You said it was making noise? Reeves asked. Yes. Earlier. Hissing. Movement. He nodded. We'll need animal control. Just in case. Daniels looked up. Do you have any idea who might have sent this? I hesitated, then said it quietly. My daughter, Samantha. We had an argument recently. About money. Reeves didn't look surprised. Just made a note. I didn't say more. Because saying it out loud didn't just make it real. It made it permanent. The animal control officer arrived 17 minutes later. He moved with the quiet confidence of someone who's seen it all. Gray vest. Calm eyes. A gloved hand that didn't even flinch when he lifted the lid. Jessica held her breath. I stood still, palms damp, watching from across the room. The man peered into the box and nodded to himself. Corn snake, he said calmly. Not venomous. Popular pet. But this one's been in here a while. He slid it out with steady hands and placed it in a clear containment tub. Someone paid good money for this. Not a wild catch. I swallowed hard. Officer Reeves turned to me. Any idea where it might have come from? I hesitated, then said it. There's a charge on my credit card. Reptile Palace. 3 weeks ago. $127.50. Jessica's eyes darted to me. She didn't say a word, but she didn't need to. They knew. We knew. She used my card. Not just to buy groceries or pay bills, but to fund this. A live animal. Sent in secret. Labeled like a gift. This wasn't a joke. I said aloud. More to myself than anyone else. It was planned. Reeves gave a slow nod. Would you like to press charges? The words hung in the air. Heavy. Complicated. I looked at Jessica. Her hand touched mine. Light, but steady. No, I said. Not yet. Because part of me still didn't want to believe it. And the other part was already preparing for what came next. The house felt different after they left. Not because the snake was gone, or because the box had been carried away, but because something inside me had shifted. Jessica made tea in silence. She placed a cup in front of me, but I didn't touch it. I just sat there, staring at the spot where the box had been. For 30 years, I had explained away her behavior. She's stressed. She's young. It's just one more time. But this wasn't impulsive. This wasn't a tantrum. This was strategy. She used my name, my address, and my money, I finally said, to send a living creature into our home. On Father's Day. Jessica didn't respond, but her hands gripped her mug a little too tight. She knew we'd be home, I continued. She knew Sunday delivery costs extra. She knew what it would do to us. Still silence, until Jessica finally whispered, "What kind of daughter does that?" I didn't have an answer, because I wasn't sure she was my daughter anymore, at least not the version I used to know. The little girl who clung to my hand in crowded grocery stores, who cried when I missed her ballet recital, who once gave me a paper tie and called me the best daddy in the world. That girl had vanished somewhere along the way. And now, a stranger was using my kindness like currency, and I had allowed it for far too long. That evening, I sat in my office with the door closed. The soft hum of my computer was the only sound. Outside, neighbors watered their lawns. Somewhere in the distance, kids laughed over a sprinkler. Normal life, untouched. But I couldn't go back to normal. Not after this. I opened the bank portal. Familiar screens. Passwords I knew by heart. Then I found it. The old credit card I'd left open just in case. Samantha had been an authorized user since college. It was supposed to be temporary. It never was. I clicked Manage Users. The system asked for a security code. I entered it without hesitation. Remove authorized user? My finger hovered for only a moment. Not out of doubt, but out of grief. I wasn't cutting off a convenience. I was cutting off a pattern that had rotted through our family's foundation. I clicked Confirm. Next, the auto transfers. Monthly rent, canceled. Car payment, canceled. Gym subscription, the one she claimed helped her mental clarity, canceled. Each click felt like reclaiming a piece of my dignity. Not spite, correction. I updated every PIN, every password, every link she might have used. And then I sat back and stared at the screen. 30 years of just helping out. Ended in 30 minutes. Jessica peeked in later. Everything okay? I nodded once. I just changed the rules. She didn't ask what that meant. She just placed a hand on my shoulder. Light. Steady. We both knew. Tomorrow, Samantha's world would shift. Because mine already had. The phone rang at 8:14 a.m. the next day. Right on schedule. I didn't answer on the first ring. Or the second. I let her wait. Let the silence stretch. Then I picked up. "Hi, Dad," Samantha said, her voice too bright, too sweet. The same tone she used when she was a teenager and wanted something expensive. "Morning," I said calmly. "Listen, I tried to pay for groceries, and my card got declined." A pause. A tiny edge in her voice. "And the car insurance, it bounced." I sipped my coffee. Strange. Silence. Then sharper. "Did you change something?" I leaned back in my chair. "Samantha, I know you sent the snake." A beat. Then, "What are you talking about?" But in the background, I heard it, Peter's laugh. Not nervous. Not surprised. Smug. That was all I needed. "I'm not angry," I said. "I'm just done." Her voice hardened instantly. "You're cutting me off? Over a prank? Seriously?" "I'm not punishing you," I replied. "I'm correcting a mistake I made. One I've repeated for 30 years. You're unbelievable. You'll regret this." "I already have," I said, and hung up. No shouting. No threats. No begging. Just a clean end to a conversation I should have stopped years ago. The phone stayed silent after that. But the consequences were just beginning. It happened just after noon. A car engine roared into our driveway. Fast, reckless. Then the doors slammed, hard enough to rattle the windows. Jessica froze in the hallway. "They're here," she whispered. I didn't need to look. I already knew. The doorbell rang once. Then again, more aggressive. Then came the pounding. I walked slowly to the door. Calm. Ready. When I opened it, they were both there, Samantha and Peter. She looked furious. Her makeup was half done, hair wild, like she'd jumped in the car mid-rage. Peter stood behind her like a shadow with clenched fists and cheap sunglasses. "We need to talk," Samantha snapped. "No," I said. "You need to leave. You can't just cut us off. You don't get to do that." I already did. Peter stepped forward. "You think you're smart? You think money makes you powerful?" "No," I said, still holding the door. "But it used to make you comfortable. That ends today." Samantha's voice turned shrill. "You'll never see your grandchildren again." I looked at her, really looked. There was no love in her eyes. Only anger. Only loss of control. "If you're willing to use your kids as weapons," I said coldly, Then maybe it's better they're not around you right now. Her mouth fell open. Peter's fists twitched. This isn't over, she hissed. No, I agreed. It's just finally real. Then I closed the door. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. The next morning, I sat in a quiet law office downtown. Dark wood walls, folders stacked neatly. A calm lawyer named Margaret, who'd handled our estate for years, looked across the desk at me with concern. I need to make some changes, I said. She nodded once. To the will. Yes, and I want them ironclad. I handed her a folder filled with documents. Bank statements, credit history, the report from the police visit, a photo of the box. Every piece of proof I'd need if things got worse. I want to set up a trust, I told her. For my grandchildren. Educational only. No access for Samantha or Peter. Ever. She raised her eyebrows, not in surprise, but in quiet understanding. That's wise, she said. We can appoint a third-party trustee. It will be completely separate from your daughter's control. And I want her removed from the will. Completely. Completely. She paused for a long moment, then said, It's not easy, but it is necessary. We finalized everything that day. Legal walls where emotional ones had failed. Boundaries she couldn't manipulate, threaten, or bargain past. By the time I left Margaret's office, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not relief. Not vengeance. Freedom. For 30 years, I taught my daughter that love meant sacrifice, no matter the cost. Now, I was teaching her something else. That love has limits. And so does money. 2 days passed. No calls. No texts. No threats. Just silence. But unlike before, it didn't feel heavy. It felt earned. Jessica and I returned to our routines like people waking from a long, strange dream. Coffee at the table. Soft music in the kitchen. A calm neither of us dared speak too loudly about, in case it vanished. We didn't talk much about Samantha. Not because we didn't think about her, but because the words felt empty now. She used to leave little notes in your lunchbox, Jessica said one morning, staring out the window. I nodded. She once drew a picture of us holding hands. Stick figures. Wrote, My daddy is magic. She smiled sadly, then paused. Do you think she knows what she's lost? I set down my coffee. She will, I said, when there's no more account to drain. No check in the mail. No reaction to provoke. The restraining order had been served the day before. The trust was already active. Our lawyer had confirmed. Everything was locked. Untouchable. Final. If Samantha wanted to reach us, she'd have to go through the law. And if she wanted to find support, she'd have to learn how to stand without using us as her crutch. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds. Light spilled onto our kitchen table, soft and gold. Jessica reached for my hand. For the first time in years, we weren't bracing for another storm. We were finally living in the quiet we had once only imagined. And that, I realized, was the greatest gift I'd ever given myself.